Welcome, everybody, to Catfish Weekly. Along with J.R. Cochran, I'm Lyle Stokes. J.R., man, temperature's up. Fish are coming off nests. It's raining one day, not raining the next day, at least here, anyways. Have you been fishing?
I have. I've been to Tennessee, and I can lie and say I've been catfishing, but I haven't. I'm still on the trophy stripers,
You caught
and
some
which
giants down there, man.
yeah, we had some success. But yeah, you target those. A lot of the same tactics and gear, like I said in the last episode of Catfish Weekly, is same as catfishing.
That's awesome, man. I know for a lot of guys that fish stripers, this is a great time of the year to do it. And I'm glad to see you knocking them out because I know you dearly love it. And let's face it, right now is kind of a tough time for catfishing, but that's fixing to turn around here before long.
It is.
I talked to a couple of guys yesterday, talked to them on the phone, and all they're catching right now is several small fish. Guy told me he started catching some spawned out females, mid-teen size, real skinny, where they was done, beat up, they was done. So it won't be long till the bigger females start coming off the nest. Usually they're the ones that come off first, but this guy said all he caught was the teen size ones, and said they was all milked out, and even some of the small males he's catching is beat up pretty bad. But heck, a lot of them big males will eat them little ones and getting away. But it won't be long now. The next couple of weeks, you'll see a lot of fish being caught, depending on water temperature and what part of the country you're at. And I think that's going to make everybody happy campers.
I think the big ones come off first too, but they do go on in waves. They don't all go on at the exact same time.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So you'll have teenage fish coming off before the big ones, but I think for the most part, the big ones are going to come off first.
For the most part, yeah. David Funk, I can't tell you what I paid for this hat because I was sworn to secrecy. So you'll have to send me a private message and then I'll consider it, but wouldn't count on it. No, man, you didn't happen to catch Palmetto Cat's show last night, did you?
I did not.
Well,
I'll have to go back and watch it.
Kevin was brave enough to put James Dockery on the show with him last night, and them two really had a great time. Enjoyed that very much. James is such a good old boy. I can't believe that his wife, Katie, would sit there beside him while he was doing that show and talking trash about her and not beat him with a ball bat or something. But she was very nice to him last night, and he should thank her for that.
He better.
Yeah. Before
we all know how that goes.
Yes, we do. Before we get started on these post-spawn fish, JR, a couple of years ago, Cindy had a bout with skin cancer, and she had it removed, and everything was good. Now, I just had this little bit taken off last Tuesday, and I'll go in tomorrow and take the stitches out of it and determine what it is and how it come up with. Want to remind everybody right now, before we forget it, how important it is to wear your big hats that shade your face and put sunscreen on, because you don't have to be 60 years old to get this. You can get it at early ages, and just a little bit of protection will keep you from having to go through this stuff before you're supposed to. And it's not that it's terribly painful, but it's not real pleasant either. So if you don't have to do it, it just takes a minute. We try to do the sunscreen stuff on us before we leave the house. That way when we get on the boat, the fish start biting. They don't forget to do it. But wear your sunscreen and dark.
Good, wear your skunk screen while you're at it.
Yes, right.
Go ahead and put that on.
Make sure you protect yourself. Sunscreen and big hats, dark glasses, whatever you got to do to protect yourself, make sure you do that, and we'll all be safe and happy and won't have to worry about each other.
Uh-huh.
Chad says that aimed towards me. It's not aimed towards anybody. It's aimed towards everybody, because all of us do the same thing. We forget about it, or we just don't think it applies to us. Well, it applies to everybody. And Mark Davis, the guy that does the big offshore shows on TV, he's a friend of mine. I visit with him just every once in a while, and he's going to try to do a show with us. Has been for the last year or so, but his schedule either don't line up or mine don't line up when he has a day off or the weather's bad or he's home. So maybe this winter we'll work that out where he can be on here, because he is up to speed on skin cancer and related items. He's had a bunch of stuff taken off of him over the years because he didn't, like everybody else, didn't protect himself. So we'll try to do that this winter and get him on here. And it's just something we all need to consider.
Well, it's about time to start seeing all the noodling on Facebook and social media.
I did see a couple of pictures this year, but I haven't seen as much as normal. That when you start seeing that, it's a sure sign that the fish are on the nest, because that's the only time that's effectively done, is when they're on beds. And for whatever reason, people think that catfish will spawn like everything else, just out in shallow water. They're looking for spots up undercut banks and logs, rocks, places where everything can't get to them, where they can protect that nest and get in there. They're not just out on a sandbar or something. At least I've never seen any out there. And if you ever watch them guys that do noodle, they're not up on the sandbar either. They're looking for stuff, or they put stuff in there, big pipes and tubes and different things for them to nest in. Friend of mine, Keith Atkins, found one in a creek one year where it had been flooded, and this old female had got up inside a tractor tire and spawned inside that tractor tire that had floated in this creek. And they seen her, reached down there and picked her up, took a picture of her, and laid her back down in there, and come back the next week. There's a little male in there with the stuff, but she was gone. But
he done ran her off.
Yeah, she went ahead and had her eggs, and there was a little male in there. He said about 8 or 10 pounds, I think is what he told me. This is several years ago when this happened, but he found that in there. I believe it was a flathead, if I remember correctly, but they was impressed that thing had found that tire and got up inside that tractor tire and was having her litter right there, which is kind of cool.
See a lot of old timers do that. They used to, back in the 70s and 80s, they'd bring tires down to the lake, throw them in there, and that's what they'd do. They'd wait till spawn. They'd reach their hand up in there and grab those channel catfish out of there.
Wow. Did not know that. That's kind of a cool deal. I never did mess with none of that.
Noodling, as you know, is controversial. I really don't know that there's any. I don't know that anyone's actually. There's a lot of hypothetical talk going on concerning whether or not, when you pull that male off that nest when you're noodling, is the eggs, the eggs have to be fanned by the males. The male will sit there and fan the eggs to keep them aerated, by pulling them off, losing the aeration. Does that hurt them? Does the silt that you're obviously stirring up when you pull that male off, is it harming the eggs, covering them as predators coming in and getting the eggs while they're posing for photos with the fish? We don't really know how bad it is, or if it's even bad at all.
Well, Missouri Conservation Department has done extensive studies on that. They even went so far as a few years ago, and it's been several now, they allowed noodling legally done in our state for 1 year. And they seen the devastation that was done. And
really?
They shut it right off. They only allowed it for 1 year.
So there is science backing that it's definitely harmful.
And 100% of the time, if you pull a female off a nest, 100% of the time, she will not go back. 100% of the time. I don't know about the males, because let's face it, nobody's really after them little males when they get them big females. They're after the big females. But 100% of the time, and all of the statistics that they come up with from the studies they've done over the years about noodling in our state is available to be read on the Missouri Conservation website. They have all that posted up there, and all of any other kind of information that they have studies on. And Missouri is one of the great states that they'll go in, and if they're going to change regulations on something, they don't just do a study and say, okay, this is how it's going to be. Their studies are a minimum of 5 years. So when they make a decision, they're pretty sure that it's for the right reasons. And although I complain about them taking so long, and I do, I have to say that when they make a decision, whether I like it or agree with it or not, they've made the right decision, because they're not going to make one that's not correct. And if they find out down the road, year, 2 years later, that a part of that needs to be changed, they will amend them. I mean, they're very good about stuff like that. They don't always do it to suit me or anybody else, but they do it for the benefit of whatever game animal it is, or fish, or whatever. And they should be coming up with these regulation studies for the big rivers this year, or sometime this year, or real soon, because they've been working on them for, I know, over 5 years. And I talked to them guys quite a bit, and they're trying to determine. I want them to put regulations in Missouri on all water like they have on Lake Ozark Truman. 2 over 34, 10 unders, leave the slot limit in there like it is. I think that's a great thing. And then just 2 overs and 10 unders and on blues and channels. Flatheads are not that much. I think they're 5, but I don't keep any of them anyhow, so it doesn't really make any difference. But that would be a really good deal. But they know how devastating it is, or they wouldn't have put those in on Lake Ozark and Truman and all tributaries. So they know how much that would mean to the Missouri River and the Mississippi River if they put those regulations on them. They've already stopped all commercial fishing on the Missouri several years ago, and the fishing.
It's awesome.
Well, from the St. Louis area up to the Kansas City area, the size of fish that's been caught up there has been astronomical. We used to see 1 or 2 or 3 huge catfish caught in the Kansas City area. Can't catch as many up there now as they do anywhere in the state. So I know that the non-commercial fishing in the Missouri River has helped a great deal.
Well, we are in full spawn mode here
100%.
On our surrounding lakes. Well, like we said earlier, they do go on in waves. So there may be some pre-spawn fish still biting, but not many. Water temps 80 degrees, and they're on the nest.
You can coming off before long.
Well, no, they won't be coming off for at least another 2 or 3 weeks. Usually around the first week of July is when they come off the nest here.
That's pretty standard Boilermaker for here too. Usually the last week of June, first week of July. On occasion, when it really warms up, we'll get flatheads coming off 4th of July weekend, but I haven't seen that in several years now. But I believe that a lot of that's water temperature driven.
Yes, absolutely. And I imagine the rivers, if they're cooler, then they're going to go on spawn a lot later. I've actually heard of catfish absorbing their eggs because it never gets warm. The water never warms up enough for them to spawn.
I have heard several theories. That's one of them. And I've also heard that if they have already built up to where they're ready to deposit those eggs and it doesn't get warm enough, they just deposit them regardless, just to get them out of their system. And then they just go on with life, and you've lost that entire year. But I don't think it happens too much in my area because there's such a diversity of water, especially around the lakes and stuff. They can find a spot that's warmer or cooler by going up in creeks and different things like that. But I know that it does happen And there's several thoughts about how that exactly works out. But like I say, I hate to see a spawn lost, but I'd rather see it lost naturally than somebody taking a big female off of the nest before she's ready, because then you lose everything.
But these fish tend to spawn in areas where, their young will have food to eat. They want them to, once they're born, they want them to have food to eat, because they're not going to be old enough to go out and be predators and
Right.
and hunt down live bait or whatever. So they're fish, so they're going to be around our local lakes. A lot of times you'll find beds near mussel beds. So whenever those fish are born, they're going to have all these mussels to eat until they reach maturity and leave that area. I think that those fish will remain residential to that area until they reach age of maturity. Then they'll leave. So a lot of times, if you'll notice, you go to a spot and you're catching a bunch of small fish. I think that's why. I think that those fish are going to stay there until they reach a certain age.
Yeah, that's great. That's great knowledge right there. And I wonder if the male and female, especially the male, would hang around there too, because he don't have to go nowhere. He's been on that fanning that nest for probably a week or two, and he can just go to that muzzle bed and load up too.
Yeah. They it's weird how the catfish diets change. And it's not just catfish; it's any fish. An anadromous species of fish that are saltwater, that go up into freshwater rivers to spawn, like salmon and stripers. When they go up in those freshwater rivers to spawn, their young will stay in those rivers until they reach maturity. Then they'll go out and they'll join the migration in the ocean. I think that freshwater species are the same. I don't think catfish are that far off from that. I think they're having their young around where they know that their young are going to eat. Otherwise, they're going to die. If they can't eat, they're going to get eaten and they're going to die.
I agree 100%. I really do. And those fish, that's why I believe that's why younger fish, smaller fish don't reproduce till they're older and wiser. I think when they become bigger, older, wiser, they know to do those things, where if they was, a catfish this size, she might not know where to take and have that deposit those eggs where they'd survive. Where a 20-pounder, she's seen it, done it, she knows where to put them. And to me, that makes sense. Not just with fish, but any species. Coming back from my sons the other day, what would you say would be the safest place for a mama deer to have a little deer to sit in the shade and not be bothered?
Where would I say that would be?
Yeah. I've seen this several times.
I don't know. I give up.
Underneath cedar trees, right beside the blacktop road, right beside the road. If you'll pay attention driving down the road, or let somebody else drive so you don't have a crash. I've seen this a number of times. They will get underneath the shade of cedar trees, and there'll be a mama and a baby there, and they'll stay there because they're safe. Nobody's going to bother them right on that road. Most people don't even see them, but
that's true.
I've seen it a number of times, and they're safe there. They ain't got nothing to worry about, and there's always a field around or someplace they can go get something to eat. Usually it's around where there's pond. But right now there's plenty of water. They could drink out of my yard most of the time this year. But that's a safety area for them. Let's face it, even out in the country now, there's a lot of houses close together.
And this episode's on post-spawn, so what better place to fish if you realize, or you come to the conclusion, that those small catfish, once they are born and they purposely had them around an area where there's food, say for example mussels, a mussel bed, then what better place to fish come post spawn than mussel beds?
That's right. I agree. Now, I know we have mussel beds out here. I don't guess I've ever seen one. I don't think I know what one looks like on my depth finder. but I've never caught a fish. I've seen you guys out there when you catch them and they kind of jingle. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
I've never
yeah, they'll
seen that.
rattle.
I've never seen that.
We have zebra mussels.
Well, we
They're
do
actually
too.
they're not native. They're from like I don't know somewhere in Asia.
Yeah, somebody drug them over here and deposited them and helped us out with some of that stuff.
Yes, and I think that's a big reason, a contributing factor to the fish consumption advisories. These mussels, they're they filter the silt, they filter all of the PCBs and everything, all the nasty stuff that's in the water, and that's what these catfish are feeding on a good part of the year. So it gets it into their tissues, and when those
Yeah.
biologists take those tissue samples from the different species and they test it from the catfish, then it's gonna be pretty high.
So you're thinking that the PCPs and the lead and all the contaminants are a percentage of them that's in catfish that we're not supposed to have, but so much of is coming from zebra mussels and things like that?
I don't see how it couldn't. All that stuff settles. From dam to dam. One lake can have stricter warnings than a lake below it, so that tells you if it were in the water, then they'd both be equal because this water's coming out of this lake and it's going down into this lake below it.
Yeah, they'll only
So it's all
so fast.
It's in the silt, it's in the bottom, and where are mussels? And what are they doing? How do mussels live? They're just like shrimp or any other crustacean or any other bottom dwelling shellfish, oysters. All they're doing is filtering. So, and those catfish are going through and they're eating that. And I think that's definitely, if not the biggest reason, is a contributing reason as to why the advisories are so high.
I've always been under the impression that a lot of that stuff come from chemicals, but what you're saying makes a world of sense to me. And they could absorb that from someplace, from chemicals somewhere, and however they get to where they're at, brought it with them. Because I don't know how.
Supposedly, as far as the PCBs go, supposedly they did away with the industrialization that caused the PCBs. They outlawed that in 1977, I want to say, but it's still in our waterways somehow. It just lasts forever, I guess.
Well, the stuff that the water system filters, it doesn't take very long for that to filter. But if it's become part of the water, I don't know how to say that any better. If that stuff has become part of the water, we may never get rid of it then.
Yeah, I think the water's fine. I think the water is absolutely fine. I think it's the beginning of the food chain. You got the plankton, and then you have the minnows, and then you so on and so forth. You have carp. You have these filter feeding fish. Other fish are feeding on them. It's just like tuna. The reason they're so high in mercury is because they eat so much of the fish that are filtering the mercury from the water.
Wow.
But I asked James Smith. He does a lot of dredging, Patriot James, and he dredged on Lake Wylie, and he said that the bottom was the grossest thing he's ever seen in his life. He said he's never smelled anything like that, just pumping up silt off the bottom of the lake.
Oh, it's so bad. If that's that bad, how long has that lake been there? 100 years.
It's old. Yeah, it's older than Norman. I want to say Norman was early 60s, and it's older than Norman. I'm Lake Wylie. I don't know. Dieter Melhorn, what year was Lake Wylie formed?
He probably knows. Well, the reason I ask is the Mississippi, Missouri rivers, probably the James River. A lot of them have been there since the beginning of time. How much crap's on the bottom of them?
That is true. I think that when you got a lot of a tidal river, you're getting a lot of current, and we get a lot of current too. But lakes that are 40 plus feet deep, I don't know. I think that the currents just doesn't wash the bottom away as well as it would a more shallow water system.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm stepping in a hole on that one.
It's 100 years old lake. Dieter's on it. 100 years old. Man,
It is old.
I did not know that.
I was going to say the 20s, maybe.
Oh, that'd be 100 years or right near it. Wow. Lake Wylie is actually the oldest lake on the Catalpa River, created in 1904 by a dam near Fort Mill. David Martin.
And it looks it.
Does it?
Yes.
Never been out there. I need to get out there and check some of that stuff out. 100 years ago when I used to duck hunt all the time, some of the greatest hand-carved duck decoys are up and down the East Coast at pawn shops and woodworking places at all them tourist towns that you go through out there. I have friends of mine that go out there just for that reason, to buy hand-carved duck decoys for collecting purposes. And I always thought I'd like to do that, but not so much for the decoys now, but I kind of like to come out there and do some fishing one time. I just think that'd be a ton of fun to go out there and get with everybody. And
well, there's plenty of fishermen out here that would be willing to take you on their boat. You got Jeff Manning, you got Dieter Melhorn, and you got a bunch of Patriot James.
I'm thinking I'll be afraid to get in with old Dieter. I'm afraid
Big Nasty
get the line to each other. He throw me out of his boat.
Get the line to each other.
Oh man, yeah. It's I would like to go out there though one of these days, and it'd take a couple weeks.
Dieter said the current dam is the replacement. Yeah. Wow. Well, it's old.
That dam, the current one's old.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
It's at least it's got to be no later than the 60s. Looking at the brick on the dam.
Wow. Yes, Mike Greenwell, we all like skipjack videos. I mean, who doesn't? Especially if you're in them. He talks about that. Some of the best times that we had years ago was there was a bunch of us that get together Cumberland City, and we'd stay 3 or 4 or 5 nights and catch skipjack. JD Richardson's watching the show with us tonight. He's in chat. He's one of the guys that went down there. Him and Chris and Steven and Doc come down there when his grandson had graduated high school this year, was 7, 8 years old, kicked him in the head in bed one night, beat him all up, sleeping. We go down there and spend days catching skipjack. There wasn't a limit on them then, and I think there probably should have been back then.
Well, even now, I'm sure the limit is very liberal even now.
100 a day, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, see, that's too many.
I'm with you on that.
Who needs 100 skipjack?
Well,
I think we already talked about this. I know you like to stock up.
I do, but I'm okay with not having them liberal limits. I really am. And the reason that I am okay with that is that I think that we're hard on not just catfish or bass or crappie. I think we're hard on bait. When you got guys, I went down there one year and got between 500 and 600 of them. And
what's funny is you don't see anybody going out and catching a bunch of mussels. You don't hear nobody saying, "Hey, I went out and I vacuum packed a bunch of zebra mussels."
Nope, you never hear that.
What's funny is around here, that's what they're feeding on. Come post spawn, you catch those fish, and their bellies are just slap full of mussels. And that, if you'll notice, that's when the grocery store baits they'll reign supreme.
Really,
the guys that are out here trying to catch big fish, those big fish, they either hadn't come off spawn yet, or they're sporadic. They're coming off in waves, and you're catching a fish here and there. But these guys that are fishing with chicken livers, the guys that are fishing with chicken breast, chicken parts, they're going out here and they're hammering teenage fish, and they're showing up all of us trophy catfishermen. They're coming back to the boat ramp with 150 quart coolers full of teenage fish, and they're like, "What were you guys doing? We hammered them." Well, it's because I think those grocery store baits are more like the mussels. Maybe they smell the same. Maybe the fish are mistaking them for mussels. I don't know, but I think that they're closer to being a mussel than, say, a giant skipjack head or
That could very
perch
well
head.
be. That could very well be. Over the years, I have had so much stuff sent to me. And to be quite honest, hardly any of the prepared baits did I ever catch anything on. Did have some success on small fish in a tournament one year on some Danny King punch bait. If it hadn't been for that, we wouldn't have had a fish, and we caught a whole bunch of them there at the end. It ended up out of the money, but still done good in the tournament overall, 100 some boats in it. If it hadn't been for that, we wouldn't have caught a fish. But that's the only time. I've tried everything else. Everybody sent me this stuff, and I give it an honest go, and none of it really does what natural bait does. And natural bait, that would include night crawlers or Dieter's favorite red worms that are so small I don't fool with. Stuff like that.
I agree.
Or anything like that. None of them catch the amount of fish.
The size, the quality of fish.
Right. Now, can you catch? I've seen Dieter catch fish on chicken. I've seen other pieces. I know guys that take it with them every tournament they go in case they
big fish, decent size, good size fish on
these
chicken.
guys will take it to tournaments in case their natural bait don't work. The guy says they'll.
I don't know why. I don't know why the boneless, skinless chicken breast, with garlic powder. I don't know if it smells like gizzard shad or I don't know what, but they're confusing it with something because that's not native. Same way there's same way with stripers and hybrids when it comes to chicken livers. A striper will eat a chicken liver.
Really?
Why? It's got to smell like something that's native to the lake.
That chicken breast or chicken leg or whole chicken, whatever it is you're using.
People think that the bait has to be native to the lake. That couldn't be farther from the truth. I mean, think about us as humans. If someone were to, if you've never had lamb, you've never been around lamb before, and someone's throwing it on the grill, throwing some Montreal seasoning on it, it's going to smell good. You're going to be like, hey, I want some of that. Yeah. Same way with fish, if they see something, it may not be something they've ever even had or seen before, but hey, it smells good. Let's eat it.
That's right. And that's a great analogy. Mr. Gadget catfishing, Dieter does catch fish on pork chops, but I'm not spending that kind of money on fish bait.
Well, bait's a lot more expensive. If you were to go buy some Mondo gizzard shad, you're looking at $3 to $5 a piece for them.
Is that right?
Around here, yeah.
Well, for Dieter, though, he's independently wealthy, so it doesn't really matter to him. But for me and you, that's different.
Dieter, he could be wealthy. Who knows?
Yeah, he could be. I've always accused him of it. He's never denied it, but he never said it was true either.
Oh, yeah. He likes to remain mysterious.
He does. Oh, man. Muskrat Exemplar, whole chicken. If you've never watched them guys that catch them grouper on them whole chickens, there's some videos on YouTube where they stick them whole chickens down and a hook as big as my arm look like, and they go down and catch them saltwater fish on whole chickens. Sharks, grouper, I forgot what all that they've caught on them, but I've watched several of them.
If you're using a hook that big, you better be a strong man to set that hook.
Yeah, and speaking of Dieter, he done a show about drags on reels, and it was very nicely done. I've checked drags on reels for years, tying my digital scales to a rod holder mount and then pulling line off of the reels because I see no reason ever for that much drag. Guys say, well, I got to keep them out of the brush pile. If you can't keep them out of the brush pile with between 12 and 15 pounds, then you need to wrap it around something.
Right.
That's just too much. I mean, the average child up to I would say 12 to 15 years old, if he had that much drag, didn't turn loose, something didn't turn loose, it pulled a lot of them.
It'd pull them in.
That's right. And a lot of women are the same way. Now,
I mean, I would dare say a 9 pound, 10 pounds of drag would yank I don't know, up to a 10-year-old child in the water.
We use 8 to 10 pounds on ours all the time, no matter where we're at. It takes a big fish to pull 10 pounds.
You know, what's funny is a friend of mine said, man, he said, I caught a striper. This was weekend before last. He caught his 46-pound striper on an Avid SX, which is a machined aluminum lever drag reel. So you're thinking, okay, CNC machined aluminum, made in America, lever drag. You're thinking a massive amount of drag. No, these reels max out at like 9 pounds of drag, 10 pounds of drag. And when a 46-pound striper, is blistering it, then, I mean, yeah, you might have to thumb that spool a little bit to slow him down.
You might, yeah. You might, but if you got a glove on, it ain't going to bother you too bad. And if you don't have a glove on it, you're going to have that blister to tell everybody about anyhow.
Exactly. It's very important to have your drag set. I know a lot of guys, they just go ahead and button them down because a lot of guys are using 80, 100-pound braid, 50 to 80-pound monoliters, and they're using 6,500 reels or 7,000 ambassador reels, and so they're just locking their drag down because, I mean, at the most they're having 15 pounds of drag, and they're not going to break that. They don't have to worry about breaking any line or anything like that.
I've had guys that get on me, so we talk about not using that much drag, but then you have your drag washers replaced by the new ceramic ones. It has nothing to do with the more drag. It's the smoothness of the ceramic.
That's exactly right. It's the inertia.
Right. Things come off, and they come off steady. They don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want none of that.
Carbon fiber. Carbon fiber is the only way to go.
That's
right. If you got felt washers, felt drag washers, then definitely replace them with carbon fiber.
And you can send them to Jarrett down at River Rat Reel Repair, and he'll fix you up with them, and they're smooth as silk, and that's the way I like them.
But these fish, they come off the spawn, and they are hungry. They have been going at it. They've been doing the old, for a good while, and they've worked up an appetite, and they're ready to stretch out and eat.
Yeah, they are. And they're looking. I'm not sure they care what it is, as long as there's plenty of it. Especially flatheads and the big blues.
Yep. Well, the good news is it's a lot easier to keep fresh bait out come July, because bait is not that hard to get in July. It's not like other times of the year where it could be scarce.
Right.
Bait is pretty easy to get, so you stock up on it and you go out and you just throw fresh bait, and you go at night, and your chances of catching a good post-spawn giant are going to be pretty good.
Yeah, and the whole time when you catch that fish, if he weighs 50 or 60, if you'd have caught him before spawn, he probably weighed 75.
Weighed even more. That's right. He might have been a little harder to catch, but hey.
Right. But
in any regard.
Right before they go on, they're really hungry. But right after they come on, it's like a kid that waiting at the hot dog stand for 45 minutes and they ain't got the hot dog done. He's starving. That's the way them fish are when they come off that nest. They can't wait to get a meal, and they don't want to stop until they're big as a football, or bigger. They want to eat all they can. They'll gorge themselves, and all you got to do is put the bait right in front of them, or reasonably close.
Yeah, just in that vicinity.
Yep, that's exactly right. So it works out good for everybody.
They can smell better than a shark. That's what I heard.
They can. Yeah, and I would say that's probably true. Now, does a shark has skin sort of like a catfish? So do they have the taste? I'm not around salt water. Do they have taste buds all over their body the same way a catfish does?
I know they have it on their snout or their, the
Face and
front of
stuff?
their face area. I
Okay.
think that's it, though.
I didn't know if they had them. Then they had a skin instead of scales. If they had them up and down their body the same way or not. But it's very possible, I guess.
Palmetto Cat said,
Now,
present it, they will come.
That's correct. That is correct. He also said that it's on the snout, so I assume that he's talking about the sharks and stuff. Not much of a shark chaser. I always want to catch a grouper, but my shoulders won't let me do it now, so I guess I'll have to stand with the big trip that we had in Mexico 15, 20 years ago, where we caught a bunch of really nice fish down there.
Yeah, you got to be in pretty good shape to catch grouper.
Yeah, I don't think I have been in that shape in a long time.
You don't want to go out there trying to catch grouper with a torn rotator cuff or anything.
Yeah, I've had them repaired. I don't want to go through that again, but I'm thinking you ain't going to go down there and catch one with no Zebco 33 either.
Yeah, I don't know. There's probably somebody that's tried that.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind somebody hadn't tried it. Yeah, so, but yeah, I'm 6,500. I've got a couple of bigger reels than that, but not too many anymore. I used to have a bunch, but I just don't. I wouldn't be very comfortable taking one of them 6,500s of mine down there on something like that. But yeah, I don't think with my shoulders I got any business trying to catch them big old grouper like that. Now, some of the smaller sharks and stuff would probably be fine, but I don't know. Just don't know that much about shark fishing, but
yeah, y'all have wing dikes up where you are, don't you?
We do have a lot of wing dikes on the rivers. Yeah.
Do they play a part come post spawn? You target the post spawn fish around those at all?
Once they come off and they get a little bit of eat, I think that they go to the deep holes right below the tips of the wing dikes. The water comes down through and it hits them dikes and it goes around the end and it make a scour hole.
Yeah, so you definitely got some current breaks around there.
You've got a lot of current breaks. They can go in behind them wing dikes where there's not very much current. They get them plenty to eat right back there because there's always Asian carp of all sizes, and there'll be bluegill and a shad around a lot of them, and skipjack and stuff like that will come in there to rest, to get out of the current, and they go in there and feed up. But I think once they have their big gorge, I think they go down that deep water and just sit there and rest for a while because, man, they've been doing their business for a while, like you said.
Exactly.
They got a little bit of something to eat, so they go down there and make a couple of deposits and rest up, and that's a great place to catch them.
Until they smell that giant freaking head that you just put 12 feet in front of them. Then they might kind of mosey on over there. Yeah, what is that?
How you doing? But, them every one of them wing dikes don't hold fish. And I tell people this, why not? That's why I don't know. But you can hit 10 at 10 in a row, and maybe 2 of them will hold fish, maybe 5 of them will, maybe just 1. But the one that's got them, there'll be a lot of them, but they don't all hold fish for whatever reason. But like tournament fishing, that's one of my favorite places to fish, is right off the tips of one of them, because they all got the scour holes. And everybody now has got quality enough sonar that they can see the bottom and see if there's structure in there.
Exactly.
A lot of times I don't see fish in them scour holes. A lot of time I just see a tree laying in the bottom there, and that's good enough.
Yeah.
If you can get that bait to where you can, if you can tie up and anchor fish to that hole, or if you drift through it and you got your line way out where it bounces right through there, you're going to lose some rigs. But if you don't, you're going to catch some fish. But
I like looking for holes right outside of creek mouths. So I'll come out of a creek mouth and I'll head toward the main river channel, and I will look for holes. Like you
I
said,
love
I think
them
they come
holes.
out of there. I think they come off the nest, and a lot of times they'll go to those holes to rest.
A lot of
And
times that'll be the deepest. If they don't have dikes, a lot of times that'll be the deepest hole other than a big corner in a river, a small river especially.
and you can pull them out of those holes.
You sure
Like you
can.
said, just using sonar and using your graph, you can spot those with side imaging and down imaging. You can spot those holes.
You sure can. Like I say, a lot of times you don't mark a fish. Sometimes you'll mark several fish in. Sometimes you'll mark one. Sometimes you won't do nothing. But if there's a tree or a pile of rocks or debris of some kind in the bottom of there, there's fish in there. I would almost bet on it. If you get a slick one, you may or may not catch anything. If they're slick, there ain't nothing in the bottom of that hole. It's washed out for whatever reason. You might not catch any fish in that one.
I concur.
But if there's any kind of trash down there for it to hide around or lay around or get up against or to hide behind when all the bait fish come flying through.
And I think it's a good time to change up your tactics. You know, most of your catfishermen, especially the trophy guys, the tournament anglers, going after the big catfish, most of the time they're fishing and they're using sinkers. They're trying to get their baits down. But if you're fishing a reservoir at night, when you're targeting these post-spawn fish, which a lot of guys will target them in the summertime at night, I think a good tactic is to use slip floats and throwing your baits out free-lined with no weight. You know, especially if you're using a big bait, you can still cast it out and get plenty of distance without using any weight at all. And I think that bait is going to give that bait a more natural look. And I think using your trying to vary your tactics could help you be more successful.
I want to try some of Patriot James bobbers and free line off the bobber. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Free line off the bobber, yeah. Just set it at whatever depth, you know. If you're fishing,
but you them. What do you call them?
It's got
bobber stop.
The bobber stop. There you go.
Put your bobber stop on there at whatever line distance you want, and just let it float down till it gets to wherever you want it to go. And
exactly.
I think that would be a really good way to catch fish, especially in holes like you're talking about off a creek channel at the end of there. Now, some of them holes, you'd have to put that bobber stop 50, 60 feet back on a hole scour hole behind a dike. But for them creek things, and most of them 30, 40 feet around here, so most of them are not that deep. But any place like that where there's a hole or brush, I would want it to set it towards just above the brush where they come out there and get a whiff.
And if you wanted to fish shallow, if you were fishing a point, if you wanted to get up on the bank, you know, if you didn't have one of those, a slip float or one of those Patriot James bobbers, then just a balloon would work. And if you're fishing at night, you can take a little glow stick, throw inside that balloon. You could tie that balloon on your main line at whatever depth you want to fish it. If you want to fish it 4 feet deep, tie that balloon on there 4 feet deep with that glow stick in it, and cast that bad boy out. And just be careful casting it out, because you'll probably bird nest, because that balloon is going to catch the wind and it's going to slow the spool and arc your line and bird nest you. So it probably would be a good idea just to feed that out.
I got to tell you, there is nothing in the world that I wouldn't find more funny than somebody showing me how to do that and bird nesting one in the process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like to just feed it out.
Yeah.
Like give it a little toss and then just feed it out.
You know, that's kind of like I do with planer boards when I'm using one off the side. I'll cast the line out and then let it hit bottom. Then I'll put the planer board on and just set it in the water.
Or if you got a live bait on there, you can just let the bait swim your balloon out.
Yeah, that'd be great. And we keep balloons all the time in the boat. And Larry Muse is the reason for that, because when he first started talking about his dragon weight, that he said, make your balloons about the size of a golf ball, and that's what floats the bait up. And that was before we had demon dragons and all these other things that come out, you know, and that was what he used. And I'm not sure, I haven't talked to Larry in a while, but I bet he's still using balloons.
Yeah.
we've got all the stuff out of 2 boats sitting in my shop right now, and I'm sitting here looking in top of a toolbox is my bag of balloons I bought because of Larry Muse. And I've
Exactly.
used it.
And guys are the sky's the limit on innovation. I mean, you look at some of these demon dragons. They're I want to say they make some that actually light up. I don't know if they're the
Yes.
Demon Dragon brand, but they actually
Yes,
have a light in them, and
they do.
it makes sense. To get some light down there. I mean, if you look in the saltwater world, if you're deep dropping for grouper or a lot of different species, they market. There are companies that are very successful in the saltwater world. They sell a lot of their product, and they're nothing more than lights to light that water up down there for you.
Yep.
Above your bait, around your bait.
Makes sense to me. Palmetto Cat says, Catfish Weekly, have you ever used planer boards? Lost you. While anchored in current, I have, and they work swimmingly well. You just let them float out to the side, and you can have your line straight out the back of the boat. And we usually use the corner of the boat in the back as one reference point for like, I'm going to say 45 degree from the straight out one, and then the next one will come out a little bit further, and they'll go further out than the ones off so you don't get them tangled. Put them at different links out away from the boat, and use them off the corner and then up on the sides a little ways and make them out way out, and that works really well in current. We've used them on the Mississippi River. We've used planer boards on the Missouri River. We use them on the lakes, pulling boards. One of my favorite ways to fish. So I really, really like using them. We do a lot of planer board fishing. We really do. Has everyone been seeing the mayfly hatch, or is it just in my area? I haven't seen it, but if the mayflies are out, I hope it's just in your area because I don't need them. Paula. But if you got them, I'm pretty sure that everybody else does too. They're disgusting. And if you're fishing at night, and a lot of people, if they're not fishing at night yet, they will be before long. One of the things that we do is I've got lights on my boat that go up 12 feet. And I crisscross them so I don't have shadows, and shine them off the back of the boat. And you can film off of them. You can do whatever you want to off of them. Most of the bugs will go to those lights, even though they're LEDs, but not all of them. You're going to get some down around your depth finder, and I highly recommend turning the light way down on it, or just turn it off if you're sitting. But if you're not sitting, if you're drifting or whatever, then you got to have it on. But
just get out there later. I think the later you're out there, the less the bugs. I think if you can make it till after midnight before you turn a light on, then you won't be in as bad a shape with the bugs.
That's probably a good idea. Yeah, when we go out, we usually go out before dark, and we usually stay out till way up in the morning. But if the wind blows just a little bit, the bugs aren't nearly as bad.
Mm-hmm.
But if it doesn't blow and it's hot and humid and you got lights on, it's going to be tough. Check out James Ockley's cool new cooler. He won't share with me and Lyle. That's a fact, Chad. He won't. We even tried to buy it, and he wouldn't even let us bid on it. Have you seen those coolers that they keep fishing night crawlers at Walmart and different places?
Yes.
James Dockery won one of those.
Okay.
Who else could be that lucky, man? Who else could be as lucky as James?
That's is that one of the Engel coolers, or is that the Frable?
I think it was the kind that keep the worms in at Walmart. He'll tell us here in a minute. He's in
you meant like the with the door?
Yeah,
like
the glass door on the front.
Oh, okay.
It looks bad, man. And Chad and I was going to bid on it, just buy it from him, and he wouldn't even have no part of that. I thought that was fair. But nope, wasn't going to do it.
I can't believe no one has said anything about my beautiful new
It's a
catfishing
great looking
crappie
hat.
hat.
It's a great looking hat. Looks just like mine. These are awesome hats too, man.
Yeah, they are.
They're really nice. Really nice. James put our names on the cooler with a big circle and line through them. I know he did. Yeah, he's just like that. Funny guy. But he did a good job last night with Kevin. They had a great show, and I enjoyed it very much. Of course, I didn't give him no crap at all. But he did deserve it, whether I got to give it to him. Yeah, JR, these shows that we're having with just you and I talking about different subjects, I really enjoy, and I think the people enjoy them. We had a pretty good crowd in tonight. Next week, Jeff Manning is going to be on Catfish Weekly. And I know that we'll probably talk about stuff besides his upcoming tournament, but that's the idea, is to get the word out so as many people can hear about his tournament as we can make hear about it. And if we need to have him on again before then, that we'll do that, because it's a great tournament.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you that show is going to go by in the blink of an eye.
It is. It's simply because Jeff is just a cool dude. You and him are pretty tight. You live pretty close together, and I've known him online for a long time, and he's a blast to have on. We've had him on before, and I enjoyed it so much. But I want to help him with this tournament.
Yeah. Well, he's going to have his hands full.
You think he's going to have a big crowd?
He did last year. I think last year was big. Yeah, it exponentially bigger than years prior. So,
that's awesome.
And this year it's going to be even bigger, I bet. I think this will end up being a pretty surprisingly large tournament for what it is.
That's great. Now, for those of you that don't know about this tournament, now keep me in line here, JR, but you have to catch a channel cat, a blue, and a flathead. And if you catch 100 pounds worth of blues, you can only turn in one if you don't have a flathead and a channel cat. So you could have somebody with a smaller weight, if they got one of each species, beat you if you had more weight on one fish. Is that right?
I think so, pretty much. I think you have a Grand Slam category, and then you have a biggest blue category, and then you have a biggest channel category. I could be wrong on that.
I believe you're right. I watched some of that stuff that he done last year. Part of his weigh-in, I'm pretty sure I've seen all of it that was televised. It just looks to me like it is a lot of fun.
It's a blast, and I'll be there filming it. I'm sure maybe Dieter, maybe some other guys will also be there filming it, because it's some good content to have there.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of good content to get.
Now those
guys are good guys. It's on Lake Wiley. It's at South Point boat landing, and we had a big turnout. And I think that we need some more people to give Jeff a hand as far as getting the fish weighed. We had some issues, had some problems with the scale. Last year, the scale wasn't wanting to operate properly, and I think that maybe this year someone needs to think about bringing a live well or some kind of tank to help keep these fish healthy. I think some of them were out of the water a little too long due to the scale malfunctioning, but they tried their best. That they were definitely conservation minded, but there were some issues with some fish being out too long. We had some trouble reviving a couple fish. They swam off, but we had to spend a good bit of time with a couple fish to get them back to where they were ready to be. They were resuscitated and ready to swim off.
Well, so I hope that we can get all this lined out. I'm sure Jeff will have all the information from us. And for those of you that don't know Jeff or don't know who we're talking about, you can check out his YouTube channel, Team Reeling the Blues. Jeff Manning is an extremely knowledgeable guy, can build, fix, repair, innovate anything that you can think of. And he's a ton of fun to talk to at any point in time, whether you're watching him on a show or whether you're visiting with him on the phone.
And I want to say he's from Missouri.
From the opposite side of the state than I am. He's told me about that, which I found extremely interesting because he's fished some places on the Mississippi that Cindy and I have fished. So that's way cool. And but he's very knowledgeable, great fisherman, just a heck of a guy. And we're going to have a lot of fun with him next week, JR.
Absolutely.
So we're running on about an hour, kind of time to shut her off. I've had a blast tonight.
I have too. I think we covered, I don't know, a good bit of information regarding the spawn.
I think so.
I don't think we left too much out.
We got sidetracked a little bit, but that always seems to happen.
Yeah.
But we'll be sidetracked a lot next week with Jeff.
There you go. I'm sure Jeff will have a lot of knowledge on the subject.
I'm quite sure. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in tonight and watching Catfish Weekly. For J.R. Cochran, I'm Lyle Stokes, and we'll see you next Monday night on Catfish Weekly.
With Jeff Manning. Don't miss it.